go ahead and get the screen share going here. All right. Are you all seeing the basic instruction? You are? Okay. All right, good. So, again, textbook readings are from the sewing book. Y'all are going to get your 10 points tonight for the live lecture. And then I already saw that there's some new posts in the forum discussion. Again, I'd like to congratulate you all. For the last 2 weeks, you're doing a great job. Very thoughtful reflections and things put into your discussion posts. Really good job. I'm very impressed with what y'all are doing there. So do that. Oh, this says Saturday. I need to fix that to, I'm sorry, it says Friday and Saturday. Those need to be Thursday and Sunday, just like they typically always are.
Quick question. There is a time limit on the final. Will you take it off?
I just did, yes.
Okay. I was going to do it today, and I was like, 45 minutes. I just sit down. I was like, I'm going to.
Yeah. No, I took that off. And if you ever see a discrepancy like that, Tina mentioned it to me when we got on, and I popped over and did that. We copy everything from the on-ground class, and on-ground I do have a time limit on it, and I thought I had gone through and got all those off, but there's sometimes a chance I might have missed one of them or something here or there. So it has been taken off.
Okay.
Okay, good. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about measuring the body. That's going to be something we'll revisit a few more times too as we have our different sewing or pattern making classes, because it is an important task or skill to be able to do, is take accurate body measurements so that you pick the right size patterns or build patterns to the right measurements for that body. And reading a pattern envelope. That's really important. The envelope so far that you've gotten has been the one item, one size for that exact pattern, but if you go buy one at the store, there'll be multiple sizes in there. And I have some slides a little bit later here to talk about each of these different topics. Just a little, there is more reading or maybe some other video resources in your lessons on these, so make sure that you check those out as well. Facings, you're doing that on your dress. Darts, gathers, and pleats. Those are part of your samples this week, and your dress project will have the darts in them, but gathers and pleats are other options that we'll see that you can change up silhouettes. Closures, there's all different types of closures. In this project, you're going to be doing a zipper. And then our sheath dress project. The assignments this week are your discussion and test, as always. The sewing samples, a little zippered bag, so you get practice with putting a shorter zipper in before you go put a long zipper in the dress, and then the sheath dress project. All right, so using store-bought patterns. I'm going to recommend that it is a good practicing way, especially if you're very new to sewing, because if you're in this program, you will learn how to make patterns, and from those patterns you're going to have to decide which piece do I sew to which one first, because when you make your own patterns, they don't come with the sewing directions. Now we'll work some projects in the next classes that'll kind of walk us through those stages, but patterns and their instructions can be a little intimidating. It's lots of pieces of paper, but if you start at the beginning and just be methodical about reading and checking out the diagrams all the way through, you can get through that roadmap. And I've learned so many different ways to do things sewing. Even within one pattern company, one top might be finished a different way around the neck edge or the sleeve edges or the hem than a different top or blouse from the same pattern company, just a different style. And you'll find as you begin to work more projects and handle more and different types of textiles, you're going to find out what's easiest for you, what's the quickest for you, what looks the best. And that is what guides a designer and or seamstress who's making things in their choices is as they build their little repertoire of knowing how to do different things. And the store-bought patterns help you do that. Taking good body measurements is the place to start so you know what size to take. Store-bought patterns do not match store-bought clothing. All right. In store-bought clothing, I'm a 6. In store-bought patterns at the fabric store, I'm a size 12. All right. So I don't go by a size number anyway. I go by the measurements of my body. And in fact, I'm actually a different size around the bust than I am at the waist and hips. So I'm actually like a 14 on one and a 12 on the other. But I can get the 12 and then make just the slightest little adjustment to the pattern that gets me almost to a 14 in areas. And that's why if you see over here on the left-hand side, you see this pattern with all these multiple lines. There's numbers really small in this photograph, but if you were looking at one up close, you'll see that each one of these little numbers is associated to a size to that line. In your next sewing class, we will actually use a store-bought pattern to make a skirt, and so you'll get some practice with this. But I highly do recommend, as you have an opportunity to, take on a little project, go ahead and use store-bought patterns to help guide you through that. I also highly recommend find them when they're on sale. Every so often, McCall's Simplicity and Butterick will have like 5 for $5. So it's $1 a pattern. It's a great way to stock up on some basic silhouettes, some pieces, and you don't have to make them right away. You can just get a few if you want, have them on hand, keep them as inspiration of things that you can do when you find you have the time. All right. Facings. This is one of the topics this week to explore, and and you're doing a facing on your dress. So the facings are what is actually on the inside of a garment. They'll be sewn around an edge to finish it off. You'll find them around the neck edge. You can also find them around an armhole. We could have done a facing on the armhole for the dress you're doing for the project this week, but I chose to do 2 different things. A wider shaped facing to go around the curve of the front and the back neck, and then do a bias edging around your sleeves. That way later when you start making up your own ideas and patterns, you know 2 different ways in which to finish off edges. Now we'll practice making a facing pattern pieces in your pattern making classes, but then you also can do the bias edging. You're going to practice a French bias as one of your samples this week, and that's what you're putting on the dress all the way around, and that's based on the measurement of the armhole all the way around. So there's two options. And here on the polka dot little top, the white with the black polka dots, you'll see that you've got the facing with the interfacing applied to it. It can be ironed on. If you don't have an iron, consider that when you go to select the interfacing, get the kind that you would have to baste around the edges, but once you stitch it down in your seam lines, then that will hold it. Out here around the outer edge, though, you may need to do a little edge finishing like your zigzag to make sure those edges stay together. It'll be right sides together. It'll be stitched around the neck all the way around, meeting back over here. You would clip curves to be able to make it fold in and around that curve better. Press it to the inside of the garment. So then it would, like in this case, it would be flipped to the inside like this gray part is on this little blue jacket. And it just finishes off the neck edge quite nicely. But my dear, my husband was bleeding. Shaping devices. So shaping devices here are shaping garments to the body. And darts are one way we do that. The dress form on the left shows some darts kind of pinned into place. There is one up here from the shoulder coming down to the bust point, But this one under the bust coming towards the waist is like the one that you're doing in the dress, yet you're continuing it past the waist and down into the hip area because your dress doesn't have it does not stop at the waist. But you also have a single dart coming from the side out to the bust point as well. And what that allows, a dart is kind of like a triangular shape fold in the fabric that will get stitched on those little triangle lines so that it allows fullness, the full circumference around the body at the bust area, but then takes the fabric in to fit narrower around the waist area. So that's why they're referred to as shaping devices. They shape the fabric to the three-dimensional body form. Gathers are another one. Here's a skirt with a long yoke, and then the extra fabric here is stitched on. I can see everybody, so just by a show of a shake of your head or a nod, has everyone done the sewing samples yet? Some no? Okay. Well, you will be doing a small sample of this. You won't be doing it in the dress, but sewing samples you will. But essentially, you're taking this piece, which ungathered would be really long. It might be all the way out here to the left or so. And you're bunching it down to fit a smaller piece. It's essentially what gathering is. It's taking a big piece and drawing it up to fit. Think about like your shower curtain. You can stretch it out, or any curtain across a window. You can stretch it out. And it might have a few little folds. But you can push it and bunch it down to a smaller space, and you get all these kind of random folds. And that's really essentially what gathering is doing. Now, we'll find gathers on skirts, maybe at the hip level. You might find them up at the waist level. You'll find them over the shoulders on sleeves, down at the bottom of sleeves where it meets the cuff, or at the wrist. You can find gathers on dresses at the waistline, and they'll go up towards the bust or out towards the skirt hem. You can find them on pants. You'll find gathers all kinds of places. And pleats work the same, similar way as gathers, in the sense that you're taking a piece. If I unfolded all of these, it would be a wider piece, a longer piece that has to be folded in very specific places and very specific amounts to fit a smaller piece, like this waistband. And so where gathers are random folds, pleats are very planned and match measurements. Two different looks, but they do they do take larger pieces of fabric and bring them down to fit smaller areas. Different types of fabric are going to have different effects with those. Pleats look great in crisp fabrics that hold nice sharp folded edges, but they can be done with soft flowy fabrics as well. Gathers can be done with soft flowy fabrics. They can also be done with crisper fabrics. With really crisp fabrics, from this point where it stitches on, they'll probably almost poof out a little bit more, whereas a fabric that drapes will hang more straight in folds in that sense. So now when you kind of start looking at photographs of different clothes, see if you can notice those little different things. Darts, pleats, gathers, what's making the garment go from a larger area, fit a smaller area. And closures. The closures of focus this week will be zippers. We will actually be doing buttons and buttonholes in the next sewing class on that next skirt, or on the skirt that you'll be doing. And on your zipper lesson, I want you to read through that really good. It does describe different types of zippers. The one you're putting in your dress is what's called a conventional zipper, and it just has like a little metal stop at the bottom. It just goes up and down. It gets stitched on two edges, kind of like this orange one over here. You do see the top stitching. It has little folds on each side, and the zipper basically runs down the center of it. On jackets, you need the zipper to separate at the bottom. So they name those separating zippers because it's being called what it's named. And this gray one is an example of that. They can either be metal or plastic, and they'll have that little slot. You slide one side into, if you slide it through the zipper pull into place, and once it's seated in there, then the teeth would line up when you go to pull the zipper pull on up to close the zipper. Zippers can be done with plastic. Over here, there's an example in metal. Plastic, you can very carefully sew over. Metal, you will probably break a needle, okay? And so you want to be careful with that. I don't know how many needles I've broken over the ages. I've never really had a problem with pieces flying out, but they can, okay? Be aware of that. I always joke I have my eye protectors on, but anymore I can't see close up with these, so I take them off. So therefore, then I'm not wearing eye protectors. Just be aware of that. So when you are sewing on anything that gets super thick, or if you're getting close to anything metal, be very careful that you don't sew on top of it, okay? These zippers over here are really kind of fun ones I found in a picture. See how decorative they are? They've got like little flower cutouts, make them look very lacy down the edges. And I've been recognizing a trend here in the last year or two has been these exposed zippers. Zippers that are stitched on the outside of the fabric rather than having that zipper tape hidden on the back side. So those are kind of fun. These, the fabric stores don't stock a whole lot of these easily available to just purchase if you go into Joann's, but maybe searching on the internet every now and then they might have some fun ones that probably don't have this array of colors. But I think the more the demand is there in the retail area, you'll see them stock more of them. Other fun things are you can change out little pulls on the zippers. This little thing can snap on or slide on or different things. You can change those out. That helps decorate things up too. So being aware of your choices with zippers. Oh, I thought I had another slide in here. There are plenty of other closures. Buttons are going to be our next most common one. Like I said, we'll cover that in another class. But when you look at the section of under lessons, under zippers or closures, there is a picture showing lots of different closures. There's hooks and eyes and little toggles and clasps and buckles and all kinds of stuff. And if you look around at just your coats, any of your garments, bags, backpacks, they all have some really interesting things that close stuff up. All right. Moving into that sheath dress project. So you're having practicing darts, both for the front and the back, bias binding around the armholes to finish them off, a center back zipper, I don't have it here, facings around the neck edge, and the hem. I'd like for you to do it where it's hidden on the outside. So you were shown in week 1 the hand hem stitch, where you take little tiny stitches to the front side of the fabric. But last week you also were shown how to do the blind hem on your sewing machine. So I would, I'm going to say you can choose either one of those methods, whichever one you found most easily accomplished. All right. And then just make sure that you check out the assignment so that you know what photographs that you're going to need along the way. Because I know once you get going with all those steps and you're like, oh, okay, I got that, I'm ready for the next one. Try to make sure you have a list there to know, oh, I got to stop and take a picture of this. Make sure they're well lit. And it's very helpful. Thank you all for kind of sizing them down into the project window. It's just a matter of click on that picture as you're putting them into the window. When they turn blue, get the little corner, and you can just rescale them down somewhat so that they're easier to see within the window. Or some of you are kind of applying them and making it onto pic collage and then putting that in there. That works fine too. All right, but just make note of which pictures you're going to need and make sure that they're clean, clear, well lit so I can see what's going on. It helps you in the long run because if I can see stuff, I'm trying to give you feedback on those. So in your sewing samples, if I had some feedback, I went in and I typed it in and I either made it italics or I turned it red. So on each of your pages, you can go check those out. If I didn't have any comments on there, you've got the gist of what you're doing. You did a good job. I don't have the grades yet in all of those because remember we had some mix-up of some were on week 1, then you had samples in the bag that should have been in week 1 and all of that. So instead of counting you off for something that might not have been there, I was like, okay, I'll see it next week or the, week 3. So I figured I'll pan those all out. But if you are wondering, on anything, like I said, I've got some comments or notes in there. And again, just another reminder, store-bought patterns are a really great way to practice and learn. Look for your sales, use your coupons. And another great way to start practicing too, as soon as family finds out you know how to sew, if you haven't already been asked, they're going to ask you, can you hem this? Can you put these buttons back on? Can you fix this? And they will. It's going to happen. Try to, that's all I can say. If you've got questions, let me know. Even if it's not to do with the school work and somebody wants you to help hem something or take something in, I'd be happy to give you some advice on that. Okay. All right. So that was it on the slideshow. Oh, I hear Sierra. Or I hear Sierra's little baby.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry for being late. He was kind of agitated.
All right. Well, I tried to get this recording, so hopefully we captured some of the early part, and you can go back over that. Does anybody have questions about anything so far that you've either been reading on the site, if you've gotten into samples or into the project yet? Some of you might still be muted, so check your little
Sorry.
microphone.
Sorry, I muted when my daughter came in. Yeah, I just need help with that thing we were talking about earlier.
Okay, with the facing?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anybody else have any questions right now?
Yeah, the interfacing. I have some.
Okay.
On the
samples, the interfacing you're applying to it, or
yes,
within the
that one.
project?
I have questions about the sample on the sample with the interfacing, and then when I was trying to do the collar for the dress.
Okay. Was it the fusible facing or sew-in facing?
The sewing facing.
The sew-in interfacing. Okay.
Yes.
So that one, it's not activated by any kind of heat from an iron because there's no adhesive to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave you all a really thick sample with that. That's really too thick for anything you would actually use in a garment, but that's what they would use like in purses or some bags. And you could, the hand sewing basting stitch around is usually what you do. You secure it onto a piece so that then the two pieces, the fabric and the interfacing, are attached, and then they act like one piece for whatever end you're using. And hopefully as you read through those articles, you kind of found out there's all different kinds of interfacings for different types of fabrics. And you kind of want to match it up to the fabric that you're dealing with. You've got a stretch knit, you need an interfacing with a little bit of stretch, but the idea of if you're interfacing something for a knit, you're trying to stabilize it, keep it from stretching in a certain area. There's very lightweight interfacings, and then some that will stiffen things up. You'll find really stiff interfacings like in men's dress shirts, like in the stand in their collars and where their button plackets go down. And so that could be very stiff. But on like a lady's blouse, if it's silk or something, they need something to help stabilize areas where buttonholes and buttons might go in, even if there is a little neck facing. But you want it to also give sturdiness to it or strength in certain areas. but you want it to be flexible and move with the drape of the fabric. So again, kind of watching for the, trying to match those up. And I'll tell you what, it takes time to kind of learn what's the right one. If you're not sure, those ladies at the fabric store can usually offer you some advice. Interfacing isn't too terribly expensive. I do try and keep a little bit on hand. That way, when I have new fabric, I can just, about the size of what, maybe even a little bit bigger, of like the samples that you're doing for the sewing samples. I do a sample to the fabric I'm getting ready to make a garment out of. And if I'm not sure and I have a couple different interfacings that I could use, I might try several of them to see which one I like the best, the way that it's acting, looking at from the outside. So that's one recommendation I make. But your lightweight to medium weight interfacings are a good choice with the fabric for this project. And the fabric, really, I recommend also to be like a cotton broadcloth, a plain weave. It can be printed on one side, make it cute, but pretty much similar to what you've been using for your sewing samples. All right, it's not till our next class, that's when we get into stretch knit fabrics. And stable woven fabrics are the easiest to learn how to sew on, okay? So that's why I'm recommending you kind of stick with those. All right.
So there's not a particular brand of interfacing we need to have?
No, there's really not a particular brand. Just as a warning, I got my little pop-up thing. We only get 10 more minutes in our meeting because we're at the non-pay set part for using the software. So, Tina, I'm going to ask that you kind of hold up your pieces again. I know that I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will tell you this is something that's easily to kind of get reversed around, and some others may be experiencing the same thing, Tina. So I appreciate that you got your stuff on hand. So it's the back facings, and the shoulder pieces are the ones closest to that curve, and then it straightens out, and that's what should meet at center back. Okay? And I think what you've got is the center back one sewn to the shoulder, so it's going straight, and then doing the curve where you're trying to match it to where the zipper is.
I'm trying to do it like, well, my dress. Let me show you.
It's tricky because of that kind of curve, really making sure it's on one end or the other end. And your facing pieces should have like a little notch at the shoulder edge so that the notches match up. If it's the edge of the facing that has no notch, that shorter end, no notch, that's the one that's going to the zipper. But Tina, are you seeing how that curve isn't wanting to lay in place on the back? I'm kind of trying to get you into the big screen. All right. Yeah, so see how they wanted it to hang that way and down, they're not matching at center back?
Yeah.
All right. So, if you took the one that's on the left side of your dress and just move it over to line it up to the upper curve of the right side of the dress and see if the curves match when you do that, as if you were swapping them.
Someone like that?
Yeah. I think so. It's a little bit below what your camera's capturing. So there we go.
See that?
Sort of. Well, I'm trying to see, why do we have that curve there? Oh, that's your seam allowance.
Dress, the back of my dress.
Okay. Yeah.
I know it says right sides together.
Yeah.
Here's the collar. little edge.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, go.
See, it's not laying into that curve. So where you're facing is open at center back, where you're trying to make it match at the zipper.
Mhm.
Okay. Take one of those. Yeah. So that piece there on your left,
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I've got, I don't have any in pieces here.
Do
Okay.
I have it the wrong way or something?
Yes, you do. You have, that piece that you have is supposed to be on the other side of the dress.
It probably makes sense.
Oh, wait, you moved the dress again. So what you're going to have to do is undo those shoulder seams.
Okay.
All right, and what you have sewn at the shoulder seams right now on the back pieces, that's the center back that's not supposed to be sewn to the shoulders. It's the other end that's sewn to the shoulders.
Okay. So wait, so this long one is on the shoulders?
Yes. All right, tell you what, I'm going to try to, can you hold your piece up on the screen? Hold it up so we can kind of see the whole curve like this. Okay. Now, I'm trying to see if I can, I want to draw on the screen. And I thought there was a way we could do that. Where's that little tool? Oh gosh, we're losing time. All right, tell you what, this will probably take your picture away, but you all see like a whiteboard?
Yeah.
Okay, so here is our front facing, right? Curve that kind of goes like that.
Mhm.
Okay. The back facing should have the shorter curve here and come around long and straight like that. So the short curve here, the longer edge at center back. What you have sewn right now, though, you have this edge sewn here. So yours is doing this. So the piece that's on this side needs to go over here. And the piece on this side is actually on yours also looking like this. So those have to swap. Okay? So like if you lay your dress out, you'll see that the curve is doing this, but your back one isn't matching that curve for the dress.
Okay.
It's just because, and it's this edge right here is the shoulder edge. And your facing pieces should have a little notch on them. So you have the back facing. It kind of looked like that. It should have had a little notch right there. You had your grain line. And then the front facings, and these are the paper patterns. Undo that one. I didn't like that curve. Front facings kind of went like that. They were cut on the fold. And they too should have a notch right there. It's the two notched edges that match up and sew. All right. This one really, the front one would have the notch. I'm sorry, right over here would not have the notch. Here we go. That's having the notch there, but the way you got it, your notch area is up there. Now are you seeing how the pattern pieces need to swap?
Yeah, mine didn't have the notches because I had. No, it's okay.
Okay. Sometimes, and I hope they should be on the paper patterns, but making sure you get those notches clipped, because they're the ones that kind of help you figure out which way do these puzzle pieces go. It can get very confusing. And, you know, I appreciate and thank you for showing us what you're struggling with, because this is something a lot of people get switched around. And so you may just save some people some time, or they may be sitting on this same problem and we've got it figured out. Okay?
Someone said in their discussion that they found videos to help them with the dress. Can anyone link those for us?
That what? I'm sorry?
Videos for the dress, because there's no videos to do it, and I think that's why I did so well on the shorts project, because there was videos to follow.
Okay. I don't have videos on.
In our discussion that I think it was somebody else and they said they found a video to help them with the dress.
Mhm.
I don't know who it was, but if they have it, will someone Facebook it to me or email it to me so that I can look at it?
Yeah. Did anybody happen to come across something that helped with it, or?
Well, yeah, I was on some that helped me with a few other ones. I mean, I can send them. I can Facebook it to you.
Yeah, you can do that.
All right. That's awesome. That's really good to share some of those resources. Yeah, I think with that, I ran out of time. For any 15 minutes of video, it takes about 6 hours to get it filmed, and you know, I have to pre-cut out fabrics, get it filmed, uploading, transfer process up to the thing. And I would love to try and get that for you, but I know I don't